So welcome to Satsang today. So as always, Satsang is for the experiential understanding, because that's the only thing that's going to make a difference in our actual daily quality of life. What is it that's going to make a huge difference for us in the way that we live, the way that we interact with each other, the amount of peace we can feel, and in our ability to suffer? And it is only going to be the experiential, actually living as this realization of what we really are. So I have a lot of questions here sent in via email all of a sudden, so I'm going to dive into these. We've got 6 to get through, and then I will open it up on here for any questions that you may have, or anything that you need help with, or anything you want to share, really. So let's get started. This one says, hello, Helen. Thank you in advance for your help with this question. So much love and gratitude for this wisdom and love you radiate to the world. Thank you for that. My question is around unworthiness, the unworthiness I hold within to give and receive love. My story is believed so deeply around this idea that I'm not good enough to be included, respected, valued, loved, etc., that it prevents me from moving forward in life, finding a loving partner, moving ahead in work, literally the gamut. And now, even though I want to know truth, I want to drop this story. It's saying here again, I should forget this too. This is not for me. I don't belong. I am not loved so intimately as I can imagine the love of the one to be. I know you'll say, but is that true actually? It's like you're in my head, huh? And although I weep as I type this, it is so deeply believed to be yes. How do I begin to untangle the hooks and snares? So it's a very heartfelt thing that you've sent in here. And I do remember being in that same place, that same attitude of not even wanting to want anything, because if I did, I'd have to face the fact that I didn't feel I deserved it or could earn it. And it's never more painful that than when it's applied to, when it applies itself to awakening. The peace and the love and the joy and everything that we really are. And to feel that we don't deserve that, that we are not going to be welcomed in this kind of community, that we're not going to fit in, or that we'll be welcomed, but at some point somebody will find out that we're really not good enough, and then it'll all be over. And then that will hurt even more than not even trying. So that attitude prevails so completely in the human consciousness. First thing I'd say to untangle it, to begin to untangle it, is as you begin to see just how deep it goes. You've said the whole gamut here, you use those words, across your entire life, and I'll add across the entire human consciousness. Myself included, I was right where you are, and I have overcome it. And plenty of people have overcome it. Well, no people, from plenty of body minds, no separate beings. So although it feels a resounding yes, it's true, you've put yes in capital letters here, how do you begin to untangle that? So, well, effort, a lot of effort thrown at this belief is not going to work, because whatever effort you do, if you try really hard, one of those Christmas gremlins, there's going to be many of those today, I'm sure. If you try really hard to undo this belief, then that effort is going to be taken by the thing that feels unworthy, and you'll either drop that effort or something like that to prove again to yourself that you're not good enough. It'll have to fulfill itself. So how do you go about untangling without efforting really hard? And for me, it was beginning of understanding, to begin to understand why something is trying to dissuade me even from pursuing awakening. Like, why is that happening? And what is that? How can we work with that? Why is it whenever I want something, and the more I want something, the more this mechanism cuts in to say, you know, there's really no point in trying here. So, because you're just going to get found out or hurt or rejected or something. So if you recognize that your mind is trying to dissuade you from pushing forward with this because it really does believe that you're not good enough, your mind really feels that's true. Why does it feel it's true? Well, because it's had all this experiential evidence, all the experiences you've ever had pretty much as a human being in this imagined lifetime and previous ones will have verified and backed up this belief, because the light of your real nature is shining through this idea that there's something unlovable about you, and therefore all you can do is have that experience, that validation of that belief. If you want to see life through a particular lens as the self, the infinite self, you will see it everywhere, and everyone in the entire universe will validate that back to you. Why? Because they're all you. So beginning to understand why mind is so deeply entrenched in this belief. And I say mind, I don't say you. You've taken this on as you. I don't belong. Well, there's a thought that says I don't belong. And can you find the one it belongs to? For me, this was the two-pronged attack here, effortless attack. Firstly, starting to understand why mind is so convinced, why it holds on to it with such tenacity, understanding but not judgment. Because this belief keeps being experienced as your experience. Mind goes, see, it's really true. No matter what I do, I can't get ahead. And then it holds on to the belief even tighter. Mind would not let go of something unless it thought it wasn't actually valid. So because it thinks it's valid, it's holding on, and you keep experiencing that belief then. Really, really. And at the same time, then the only way out is to begin to understand your mind, why it's like that. The only evidence mind can use as to whether something is true or not is your experience. But your experience has been a reflection of this belief. So we, the self, can't use experience as evidence, any experience ever, as evidence of anything. It just doesn't, it's not acceptable evidence to the self, because the experience is a mirror image. So mind is utterly convinced. Can you just for a moment stop fighting that and also begin to look for who it is that mind thinks is unworthy, unlovable? And when I looked myself for this me that didn't seem to fit in anywhere and wanted so much to be free and yet didn't believe that I could be so, I didn't find any separate being. I really had thought that I would find a someone when I actually looked at someone called Helen with all of her life history and all of her hopes and expectations for the future, and everything, every story was woven into this character. And I actually looked for it. I couldn't find any such person. There were thoughts, memories, experiences, dreams, desires, all of that. There were doubts and fears, and there was shame, but I couldn't actually find any. I couldn't find somewhere where I stopped. I am here, that much I could find. But there wasn't this imagined boundary where I stopped when I actually looked, and that was life-changing. And it was the only thing that began to really undo the hooks. So rather than fighting with the mind, you know, like, we can begin to just understand. Understanding is another word for love. If you really want to love something, you want to understand it without judgment. Mind is a thought machine, And it produces thoughts based on its experience, and it cannot see that its experience is a reflection of those thoughts. So around it goes for who knows how many millennia. But you're outside of that. You can say, look, that's not really working, to try to battle it that way and come back out. Okay, let me question the basic assumption. The basic assumption here is that I am the one the mind is talking to. There's a separate being here called Helen, or whatever your name is, and that is who the mind is talking to. And it hurts so much when mind says those things, because it really feels it's talking to me. Can you find it? And if not, what does that mean? The presence of thoughts, emotions, experiences, memories, dreams, and desires do not indicate a separate being. If it is here, you should be able to find it right now. All I found was this no thing. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't a someone that I found. I don't know what it was. At the time, it was just not what I expected to find. And that began to undo and wedge a gap between the mind's barrage of thoughts and my ability to kind of take that on. If I'm not even who I think I am, then is my mind even talking to me? How accurate is mind's advice if it thinks I am a separate being and I'm not? How valid are all my stories still? So I'd really encourage you to have a look. There's some self-inquiry. What we've just done in there is a little self-inquiry, a whole playlist on YouTube of self-inquiry videos. But just understanding the mind and stopping efforting against it. Just let it do its thing. It's working on false information, and it can't even understand that it's false information. Just like you wouldn't expect your computer to be able to have an intelligent conversation with you. It's running a program. Mind is a program in that way. So hope that helps. Let me know how you get on. Next one. Hi, Helen. I stay most of the time in a state of acceptance and peace, but right now I've got flu and sinus infection and staying at home with a 1-year-old that's also ill. I find it really challenging to stay present in this situation. The pain is so tangible and it's challenging to just watch it. Do you have any suggestion for these types of situations? Well, let me say, first of all, this is probably past since you sent this in, because it was a little while ago, but I was a single parent of 4. And I remember 4 young children. I remember what that's like. Challenging, to say the least. Wonderful, but challenging. So what do you mean when you say it's challenging to stay present in this situation? What you probably mean is, you say, actually, it's so tangible, the pain, and it's challenging to just watch it. So there's this intense pain in the body, and of course, there are going to be thoughts about that pain. Of course there is. So some of those thoughts are going to be, well, obviously that I want it to go. I can't cope with this. And then other thoughts saying, maybe this is ruining my spiritual practice. I'm going backwards. You know, whatever the thoughts are that are coming up with the physical pain. So that presence that you are, that before the pain's there, the presence is here. The presence is able to look at itself and just be, to whatever extent you've been able to do that. And then physical pain happens in the body, and the presence watches the pain. And presence watches thoughts about the pain. Sometimes it'll watch the pain. Sometimes it'll watch the thoughts and get really involved in those thoughts, and it'll watch the pain. Then it might come back to watch itself for a second. Then it'll go to something happening with your child, and then it'll watch this thing, that thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, and it does this. But the basic underlying thing it's doing is watching. It's watching those thoughts still. You say it's hard to just watch it, But actually, all you're doing is just watching. You're just watching the thoughts about the fact it's hard to watch. And then you're watching the physical pain experience. You're watching something really resisting that physical pain experience. And of course, there would be something there that doesn't want to be in physical pain, of course. And you're watching that. Something rises up and says, no, I don't want this. And isn't that, just a very human response? It's fine. Of course, nobody is ever going to jump up and down and say, yippee, I'm in physical pain. It's just never happened. So that same presence watches the thoughts equally as it watches the pain, as it watches itself. Sometimes it turns around and is aware of its own presence. I am here. And then sometimes it's watching thoughts. And when it watches thoughts, the body will experience the frequency of those thoughts. And then it watches the physical pain. It's always jumping around what object it's looking at. Sometimes it looks at its own subjectivity. But all it can do is watch. Totally watching those thoughts, completely lost in those thoughts, absorbed in them totally. So all you can do is be present, actually. So I'm just asking you to shift how you're thinking about this. So it's difficult to stay present because the pain keeps pulling my attention away, says mind. But staying present doesn't mean keeping my attention on the presence all the time. Although my body feels better when I do that. Staying present means recognizing I am that presence, and now I'm currently watching thoughts about how hard it is to stay present. What's passing in front of me is always changing. What I'm watching as the presence, always changing. And then sometimes I'll look at myself. And pain is a really good teacher in that way, isn't it? That it kind of pulls your attention to watch it. You can't look away. You might look away temporarily to some thoughts about it and then back again. But you're still looking. You are the looking itself. You are that presence. So accepting that you are watching that as equally as you're watching yourself or thoughts. If you had an itch on your foot, something would go to that itch. You'd be completely present to that itch on your foot. If there was a sound outside or in the room like we've had today, attention goes to that. Totally present to that. Cannot be otherwise, actually. Okay. Next one, I have got a lot of jealousy, especially around people's looks and personality. I also feel disgust when I see someone who looks similar to me or have a similar personality of mine. The thought patterns are pretty intense. Another part of ego feels really shameful that I have these thoughts. It seems to be a karmic pattern because of the intensity. I don't have much luck with self-inquiry, and I wonder, what is the point of inquiry if I am not this person? Please help if you've got some advice. Thank you and much love. So, what's the point of self-inquiry if I'm not a person? Well, the point of self-inquiry is to find out that you're not that person, actually. And that these shameful thoughts, and I'm using your words, I don't think they're shameful. I'm just saying your words. That those shameful thoughts aren't talking to you, that they're happening inside you. Imagine you were looking down from the sky. You're in a helicopter and you're looking down, and there's this huge, vast stadium. So there's like a stadium that can fit 100,000 people in or something like that. And there's one tiny little football actually inside on the grass. And that football's just, moving around in the wind on the grass, on the pitch. And instead of this vast stadium with 100,000 seats in it, all our attention's focused in on this one little thing happening right in the middle. and we're excluding everything else in that. Self-inquiry will show you that you are able to see such a bigger perspective, that you are actually so much more than this little thought constructed self, made of thoughts, by thoughts, the separate being. That's all it is, a bunch of thoughts. One thought after another, actually, because you can never think more than one thought at one time. So self-inquiry then is, first of all, to see that you're not this separate person, and that if you're not this separate person, what you actually are is something much bigger, vaster, and something that is impervious to thoughts. Something that cannot believe a thought, even if it tried. Something that can only watch. So you said it seems to be a karmic pattern because of the intensity. Agreed. Another part of ego feels really shameful that I have these thoughts. So I want to flip that around. So I want you to listen really carefully to this next sentence. Ego says, you should be ashamed of yourself because you have these thoughts. Ego says, you should be ashamed of yourself because you have these thoughts. But what if it's the other way around? Because you feel ashamed, you have these thoughts. What if all of these thoughts, because I'm betting it hasn't worked at all to try to change these thoughts, right? What if those thoughts are a reflection, a mirror image of the fact that you feel ashamed of you on some level? You feel that there's something unlovable or not quite right, or something wrong with the way you are. And again, that's based on who you think you are. So I'd like you to flip that over. It's not that you feel ashamed because you have these thoughts going on. These thoughts are going on because you feel ashamed, and these thoughts can never really fully go until you see that who you are is beautiful and unique and expansive and formless and vast and infinite and free and clear, perfect. Without blemish, completely. So this one that mind is talking to, where is it? And we can't use the presence of thoughts or emotions or experiences as evidence of a single separate being, because all of that will go. It's gone at nighttime in deep sleep. Separate being has gone at nighttime in deep sleep. It's gone when you're not thinking about anything. It's gone when you're just listening. It's gone when you're watching a movie. It's gone in the middle of sexual union, when you're sitting in a restaurant enjoying ice cream. It's gone more often than it's present. So what really is it? Separate being, is it actually there? Or is it just a bunch of thoughts? Would you be willing to question whether this shameful thought pattern is actually yours? That to me is exciting. Is this your problem to fix, actually? Because here you're assuming that it is. I've got to get rid of this. It's my issue. What if instead each one of these judgmental thoughts about others is just another little football on the pitch? What would happen then? And you're looking from the helicopter way up above, totally removed from the situation. And one of those little footballs is like, I need to fix this. This is my problem. So I'm asking you, will you look and see if this is your issue? Can you find the person that mind is talking to? Where do you end? You hear because you're hearing these words, you're using your ears to hear these words. You're using the eyes to see the image, but where are you? Are you only in that body? Will you question these things? Or will you continue to battle with mind here? Mind's got us held in this thing, right? Because it says you can't wake up until you get rid of this unworthiness, this shamefulness. You're not going to be welcomed back into the fold, into the divine, until you've cleaned up your act. And that's an endless thing. Instead, we can come to see that that never really happened anyway, and see what our mind says. Mind can't get that. Okay, number 4. 2 more after this. Hi, Helen. Quick question. Why is it so hard to just lie here in my bed? Sorry. Why is it so hard to just lie here in my bed, not with myself, but as myself? How can that possibly be difficult? It makes no sense, but that is how it seems to be. Thank you. So why is it so hard to just lie here in bed as myself? Well, it comes from the idea that who you are, and the idea being just a thought, that who you are is not good enough. So you, on some level, according to the mind, you don't deserve to just be able to lie there at peace with yourself. That you should always be in some forward motion, trying to improve yourself, making up for imagined flaws that the mind thinks is true about you. And I was laughing because I remember when I was really seeking, like the moment I woke up, I had to get out of bed. I had to, could not just lie there for more than 10 or 15 seconds. Even if I could lie there, it was immediately thoughts about what spiritual practice I was going to do today. Or most often I pick up the book that I fell asleep reading, I don't know, some profound teaching, scripture, and then carry on. Anything to get away from just being with myself. Because being with myself, as myself, would begin to stop this constant forward motion driven by this idea that I'm not good enough. This is what this is, right? If you stop for a moment, it begins to all fall apart. This idea that you're inherently, there's something wrong with you, something like that. All based on this idea that who you are is who the mind thinks you are, actually. So, not with yourself, because that would be two, but as yourself. That doesn't fit with mind's projections, does it? That you've got to change yourself in order to be happy. You've got to become a better person in order to be happy. Most especially, you've got to become a better person to become awakened, enlightened. Enlightenment really is the end of all of that. It still might go on, but you're just, you run away, have at it. I'm just going to stay here in bed or wherever I find my body to be. I'm just going to stay here. Where anything that needs to change in my body and mind will change on its own. And I'm just watching from the place of knowing there was never any imperfection or flaw in the first place. And what you've put here is the epitome of the egoic struggle, isn't it? I so want to rest. I so want to just stop. But I can't, because what ego is this, it is a forward motion. It's action happening. It's doing, and never achieving. Because the doing it's trying to do is to make up for some imaginary flaw that isn't actually there. So if you lie there for a moment in bed, you'll hear, yes, but if you just lie here, then if you just sit here spiritually, and I don't mean physically sit, although you can, of course, but sit here. I'm just sitting here. I'm just going to sit down. I'm not going to take any further. Yeah, but you're never going to awaken. You're never going to be good enough. You're never going to get past this karmic pattern. You'll hear all the reasons you should keep moving, traveling, moving forward towards some imaginary destination where the carrot on the stick keeps moving forward and you keep chasing it. The carrot being enlightenment, what the mind thinks it is, at least. So just lying there for a moment, what are the reasons that you hear, and are they true? Why you need to keep moving? Why is it so difficult to just be? Because it goes against everything that the ego is. And if you step away from all of those reasons, you'll find peace. Dear Helen, I'm so happy and grateful that I found you. A very good friend of mine is imprisoned in a deep depression. Her life consists of panic, destructive thoughts, and conflicts only. She has a lot of non-duality knowledge, but she can't feel it. When I lose contact to the real self, or I'm irritated of the non-duality, my friend is helping me with very much love, but she can't feel the love for oneself. I know that she is all right in the self, but it hurts to see her suffering so much. Is it enough to see us as one self? Or can you give me any other advice to help her? I appreciate your help very much. In love. So, why is she in that deep depression in the first place? Why would somebody with so much knowledge up here of non-duality be in such a deep depression? So what can you do to help her best? For me, the beginning is understanding, as you said, that you're not really separate to her. And as you go deeper inside, that's going to affect her also, because you are one being. All of our spiritual deepening is helping everyone. But to understand as well why she's in this place. Because the self wants to be. Actually, it doesn't even want to be, it just is. And I'm only saying it wants to be as contrast to the mind that wants to move towards, it wants to become. Self wants to be, mind wants to become, and keep becoming. Always in a process of becoming, but never actually arriving and achieving. The self just wants to sit and be. The body may be very busy, really busy. The self just is being. That's all it can do. And a lot of non-duality knowledge, and I was totally there too. The darkest place in my entire life was right before I began to actually live this. I could quote almost verbatim certain scriptures passages. I read several books. I read The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle 7 times in a row. I read I Am That so many times. I've countless books, satsangs, everything. All of it up here, and none of it actually making a difference. In fact, making it worse, because I knew there was a place where I wouldn't be suffering. And yet, knowing about that place was enough for a while. And then I reached this place where knowing about it, rather than living it, being it, was the most painful place. So this deep depression is helping your friend to see that how she's living right now, knowing this knowledge here, not actually able to apply it yet, through no fault of her own, is not enough anymore. That the only thing that leads to permanent peace is abiding as this truth. We've all been, throughout all of our lifetime, taught that knowing about something is enough. I know about this thing. I've added value to myself. I've given myself something. To know about history, to know about this thing, to know about that thing. That's all we do in school, isn't it? We learn about things rather than actually experiencing them quite often. No judgment, I'm just saying that we apply this same thing then to awakening. We learn about it, we read about it, we read scriptures, teachings, we watch satsangs, we know all about. We could tell someone for an hour what non-duality is. But it hasn't hit us, it hasn't deeply hit us. And there's a point, this is right where your friend's at now, where it's not enough anymore. More knowledge is just actually adding to the issue. And now it has to move into the heart. So what can you do to help it become a lived experiential thing for her, where she has an empty head and a full heart, instead of an empty heart and a full head? And believe me, I've been there. Well, you can do this yourself. You fill your heart up with love. You push beyond your own unworthiness. And I know you are doing, otherwise, you obviously wouldn't have asked about this, but don't judge yourself when you fall out of, what did you put here? When I lose contact to the real self, or I'm irritated at the non-duality. Don't judge yourself for that. Be that love that you are. Give yourself a break. The more that you love yourself right now without judgment, and without judgment of the judgment, when you find yourself judging yourself or someone else, can you just, okay, I'll let that go. Doesn't matter. Then your friend is going to somehow magically feel, not magic at all, it's a universal law, because there's only one of us. She's going to begin to love herself too. And the floodgates will open. And it's exciting. Probably you can't feel that right now, but you are both about to go on this discovery, deepening. The fact that you're deepening means she must be ready to also. Cannot be otherwise. So, to understand why she's suffering so much, and that amount of suffering sometimes is necessary. It was for me. For it to be so painful to only know about, and to need to actually know, not know about, but to know, which is to be. To really know it is to be it. To be it so completely that it's taken over your entire existence. That's the only thing that will truly help her permanently now. And of course, if she needs medical advice, all of that, encourage her to do so. But to understand why she's feeling that way. She's full up to here and it's spilling out the sides, concepts. Concepts are okay to play with. Eventually the self is just done with that. And that's where she's almost on. She's gone all this way up this big steep hill of learning knowledge, and she's about to go down the other side, freewheeling. If you want to, if it feels appropriate, I suggest saying that to her, or maybe asking her to watch this bit or something, that it's a call of the self to really move into actually being it, to move beyond any reasons why. I'm not ready, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, it's not going to happen in this lifetime. All of that, just put it to the side. And you see her as the self. The Buddha confused. The Buddha depressed. The Buddha at the end of his tether. That's what you're looking at. But still, nonetheless, the Buddha. The idea is about to break free. Okay, so this is the last question. If anybody wants to share anything or ask anything, feel free to raise your hand. We'll see how many we can get through today, how many hands go up. Hi, Helen, there's a sticky thought that arises at times that maybe realization is used to avoid life. But what I feel is intuition to not attend an event or answer a phone call, maybe avoidance tactics, although paradoxically there's knowing that it's impossible to avoid life as it is a singularity. Just wanted to expose this thought and would love your teachings. Thank you. So love your thoughts rather. Don't know if I can give you any thoughts, but I'll give you intuition. There's a sticky thought that arises at times. Maybe realization is used to avoid life. That what I feel is intuition, to not attend an event or answer a phone call. Maybe avoidance. Well, you can tell if it's intuition or avoidance, because if it's intuition, it will feel right. It will feel good. It will feel lighter in the body. It will feel expansive. If it is avoidance, there might only be a slight contraction or lowering of frequency in the body, but it will be there. So that's always the acid test for me. Does this feel good? When I think about not doing this thing, when I imagine, doing something else instead, then, and it feels good, then it's got to be some kind of helpful guidance. And it might be a very subtle change in the body. You might have to really listen to your body to kind of get it. You can just ask outright, is this avoidance? I'd like to see. ultimately, it can't be realization. Is realization used? You've put in the first. In actual lived self-realization, there's no avoidance of anything. There might be an event that somebody's trying to make happen, and it's just not in your path. It's not in your highest good. So your body's navigated around it some other way. But again, that won't be avoidance. Quite the opposite. So hope that helps. And you're right, of course. It is impossible to avoid, but what seems to be guidance can actually be resistance, can't it? If there's a belief I'm not worthy, might lead me to avoid attending a satsang where I might really have a breakthrough. But if you ask and get used to feeling your body's giving you real-time guidance on that moment by moment, and we just override it every time, pretty much every time. I know I did. Okay, we'll go to Michael when you're ready.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. So I was listening to one of your satsangs the other day and then listening to again this morning. And I'm realizing yesterday when I was driving, I had a customer call and they were upset. I was like, I'm realizing the thoughts so listening to what you said this morning, that seems to prevail. The big one that comes at me is, I'm going to be attacked, like something around that. And so what you're suggesting this morning is like, who's going to be attacked? Is that where I go with that?
Yeah.
Because it seems to be a very prevalent thing, and it creates like a sense of contraction and separation and fear, and really separates me. And so
you see that kind of thought, I'm going to be attacked, would only be heard or listened to or felt deeply by something that feels inadequate or vulnerable or unsafe.
yes,
some soft place inside that feels very exposed and is in fear of attack, actually.
yeah.
And is that who you really are? When you actually look at who you are, when you search your being, do you find some less than perfect thing, or what do you find?
I mean, I think in those moments I do, like, yeah, I get identified as this vulnerable, separate self that's tender and going to, something's going to happen to it.
Being beaten up by life and several thousand times, and here we go again, and there's this contraction. But when you actually look now, can you find that person?
No, but I can see that it's a made up,
it's
a
an
very,
energy, isn't it? It's an energy that comes over the body.
and it's a very familiar one that I've identified as definitely part of me,
And it's a go-to habit, isn't it, to kind of select this rather than what you actually are. What do you find? And if you can't find that now, what do you find that is you? What's here?
I mean, right now I feel like I'm a space that anything can get made up into, like yeah, but just that one's really familiar. It's the go-to, like you said.
It's just an intense habit to go to this. But if right now there is no separate being that you can find right now, let's just confirm that again. Is it ever here? Does it sneak back in when you get in the car to drive to work? In actuality, this separate being. When the phone rings and you see it's a customer's number, Do you suddenly become a separate being?
It feels like that.
It
It feels like
feels like.
I shift into that. Oh,
Are you
like,
shifting? Are you changing? Or has your attention gone from this nothingness that we're looking at right now to this old familiar energy?
yeah, my attention has gone to that old familiar.
And are you
Uh,
changed in that moment? Are you any different at all in that moment? Attention has moved to look at something else. What about you?
no.
So the phone rings and this energy, attention goes to this energy, and this energy has a really bad time. It gets beaten up one more time on the phone or whatever goes on.
Yeah.
And then it eventually dissipates. And all the while, you remain here, untouched. Can you be affected when the phone rings?
The the spaciousness, no, it accepts it all, but I've got this real tendency to swing into
I want you to hear
this
what you just said there. I've got this real tendency to swing. Are you the one swinging, or are you the spaciousness?
I am the spaciousness.
Does spaciousness have this problem? Does it swing back into? Does it move around like attention?
The spaciousness. So who has the habit then of going to that
It's
thought?
a movement of attention. Attention has its go-to places.
So who is in control of the attention?
Do you need to control attention? Are you any different whether attention is looking at this beautiful spaciousness that you are, or whether it's looking at this icky energy?
Am I any different? No.
When
So it's why,
attention goes to this ickiness,
yeah,
the body feels tight and contracted.
yeah,
Attention goes back to the spaciousness, the body feels light and free. And
eventually, yeah.
but are you affected or changed at all throughout any of this?
The spaciousness isn't. The experience, I feel like what I go through, but
What do you go through? What do you actually go through?
like it feels like terror. My body contracts. It's like anxiety.
So could that anxiety, that terror, could that be coming from this idea that something's happening to you when all of this is going on? You said the words, when I go through this.
Mm-hmm.
So it just needs to be clear what you're actually going through. Are you actually going through? Of course, we have compassion for the body and the mind and the client on the phone and all of that, but it needs to be seen if it's happening to you, any of this.
So would that be a good question? Is this really happening to me?
Yeah, and we can answer that right now. Let's look.
Okay.
Right now, just imagine the phone rung and your hand picked it up and you were in a conversation, your body was talking. Some
Okay.
negative emotions arise in the body. Has it touched
Mhm.
the spaciousness that you are? Is there anyone being affected by any of this?
I mean, it's hard for me to um, trying to imagine it, but what it
Yeah.
feels like when I'm going through it is like shortness of breath, pit in my stomach. So these bodily sensations that I feel like very dense when
Are
those.
Are those bodily sensations enough evidence for you that you're being affected by it as a spaciousness? They're there, of course. They're there in the body. We're not denying that, and we have taken them as evidence. This is happening to me. But let's really look, is it? Let's really look now.
So are these bodily sensations evidence that I'm being attacked?
Yeah.
No, I guess I could look at them and just say, these are just bodily sensations that are occurring and I'm making it mean that.
And what can affect the spaciousness? Can words hurt it? Can emotions impact it? Is it diminished when the body feels contracted?
It feels like it at the time because I feel it separates me, but it's all still happening in spaciousness.
Yeah. The space in the room is affected by anything at all that goes on in it. The space of your being. Is that affected by anything that's happening inside the body, outside the body?
No.
So here's where I would keep my attention right now if I'm you. This idea keeps being suggested to me that I'm being affected. This is happening to me. And therefore, if I buy that, I've got to make it stop. Maybe that's why you're feeling the terror, because you can't seem to make it stop. But a more intelligent question would be, do I even need to? Is this really happening to me? Or is there some kind of thought constructed self, a thought lattice that's just kind of runs around and says, this is happening to me. And then a lot of effort is made to try to get away or undo something or change something.
So the cause and effect part of this would be
causes, this is happening to me. And the effect is the experience keeps happening. I keep seem to be affected by this. But just to be clear that you cannot suffer as the self. You cannot. Intangible and formless and indestructible, completely impervious to any kind of harm, emotional, psychological, physical, anything. Free beyond even the idea of free. And just to be really, really clear about that is enough. Okay. Then the experience falls away because it's shown you what it needs to show you. This is not happening to, nor has ever happened to me, actually.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Next, we'll go to Tish, Pratish, or Tish, whichever you prefer.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, how are you doing?
Blank.
What's going on for you?
I don't know where to start. May not be a very... I'm going through something that has happened just a few hours ago. I'm trying to process it. It's just gone blank, and I just wanted to confirm with you if I'm gone blank on that. Is that right? I have a daughter. She's 7 years old.
Yeah.
And I have I have a brother. We are just one brother and sister.
Yeah.
And I don't have very good relations with him. I sort of don't talk to him because we decided to part ways for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I don't stop my daughter to talk to him because they're very good friends with each other. She's 7 years old. He plays with her, which is all okay with me. I had some issues with him, which is separate to completely that he's friends with her. That's fine. Somehow today she was talking to her on he's in India. We are in Australia, Melbourne. So she keeps talking to him on Skype or FaceTime or whatever. She was talking to him. Something told me to just overhear the conversation. I don't know what got onto me. I never do that. I was just overhearing the conversation. I didn't like the conversation, and I told her to hang up. She did. She listens. I was like, I told her not to talk to him because the conversation was not very good. I didn't like something about it. I normally don't. I'm not a controlling parent.
Yeah.
So she rebelled. She's like, why should I not? An incident happened in the past where we were living with my brother for a year or 8 months, and she was there and she was good friends with him and everything happened. And he came up to my husband and said, you haven't taught your daughter good manners or whatever, something bad in that way. You are supposed to take care of your daughter. And I felt a little odd that why is he telling so? He also has a responsibility to raise a child. He can teach her if she doesn't know something. But today, cutting the long story short, today something very weird happened. I told her, I was very upfront with my daughter because she wanted to talk to my brother. I was like, I don't like something about it. Can we just not talk? She was asking me, why should I not? And I just told her, because he actually talked behind your back and he told your father that your daughter doesn't have manners. She lost it at that. When I say she lost it at that, she cried.
Mhm.
She cried like anything. She's like, I'm scared. I was like, what happened? Why are you scared? Because she was talking on Skype, she disconnected the phone and she messaged him, you couldn't keep a secret. And she showed it to me. I didn't go there. I was like, why are you messaging him that? And then before I could say anything, the message comes up as, you want me to tell on you.
So something's happened between them and it's brought a lot of emotion up for you. And you said that you've gone blank over that. Is that what you were saying?
It just goes a little more further. It just came down to, she couldn't process the emotion, but it just is that initially when he talked to my husband, he said, she touched me at wrong places. So he was talking about sexual abuse or molesting. And she just confessed today. I just didn't believe that would happen. She confessed to me that he just did rude things to me. And I don't know what he did. I just am shaken up at that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to deal with it, but then yet again, I've come to my place with it. I'm just blank.
So that blankness can be either an avoidance or it can be a coming to peace with it. But your mind might say, how on earth can I come to peace with this? But actually acceptance of what has occurred, is occurring, is not an avoidance. It's you will know whether it's avoidance or acceptance. Acceptance is,
I know it's acceptance. It's acceptance.
so does your body feel better than it did? Does it feel more relaxed?
It does, and it's feeling odd to me. I'm much more at a relaxed place.
So
But to still process it and see myself that I'm shaken up somewhere, I can see that because I'm shaken up somewhere.
So there is some part of you that is just watching this, that real self that you are, that is just observing. And at the same time, there is some old egoic sense of self that it's had the rug pulled out from underneath it completely. What it thought the world was has just been, something has just happened to how it sees life, how it sees everything. And that has been totally contradicted by this experience. So there is a part of you that's completely maybe falling apart over this. And there's a part of you that's completely stable and able to just watch with compassion. Can you get a sense of that?
Yes, completely.
So understanding how, of course, from this understanding, the appropriate action that you need to take will happen. Whatever the action is that you need to do around this will unfold from there to keep everyone safe. And understanding why our mind, our egoic sense of self, has lots of projections about the world, that if something were to happen to our children, and I don't know what's happened or not, and I really don't want to get into that on this particular satsang, but our ego thinks this is the way the world is moving, and when something happens that really contradicts that projection, so my children are loved and safe, and something happens that really challenges that belief, then it's made of a thought structure, isn't it, the ego? So it's kind of pulled apart. A large part of who it thinks it is has just gone. So an example might be something happens and I might really feel that I'm getting to be a really good parent. Something happens to one of my children that really directly contradicts that belief. So my whole worldview as an egoic sense of self is pulled apart, and that shakes everything up, doesn't it? That's what some part of you is feeling that right now. Everything I thought to be true is in question now.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like the world just takes your paradigm and puts it upside down and says, it's not like you thought it was, it's like this. So something is in shock, a spiritual kind of shock, isn't it, at this point?
Yeah, definitely. But I can see that too. I can see that shock too.
Yeah. So just as much as you can, observing from that place of stability. Sometimes you won't be able to, sometimes you will. Understanding why it's in shock and what the process is going through, and staying present to that as much as you can. Watching, like I was saying about the person watching the physical pain, you're watching this emotional pain go on, aren't you, as the self? And sometimes as the self, that's the only way to get through something like this. You know, really. So being okay with all aspects of you, you're showing up as this infinite formless reality, and you're also showing up as this old idea of someone that is fading away, this egoic sense of self, but nonetheless right now it's in a lot of pain, what's left of it, isn't it? Emotional pain. And not trying to pick one or the other of those right now, just I don't have to choose.
Sitting with it. I'm just sitting with it.
Yeah, exactly that. And if you get into the story that the mind is telling and you get lost in that for a while, not blaming yourself for that, coming back to your stability as soon as you can without any blame.
I don't have to do anything. I'm very firmly sitting with it. It just is bringing tears as well. It's uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
I'm all the time able to see it.
Good. So just trusting that now, and trusting that that place will move the body to take any action that's necessary. And that you're able to see these ideas that you've had because you are coming out of that identification with the body mind. Yeah. Noticing how far you've come to, that you can just also watch this, even this, you can watch this.
Makes me smile. Thank you.
So there's going to be some uncomfortable emotions coming up, and just being as compassionate and loving as you can to your mind and your body as this processes through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Much love to you. Elaine?
Yeah, those last two questions, well,
You're muted there.
yeah,
There we go.
out. Right, those last two questions have just taken me somewhere else, and I haven't rehearsed what I was going to say.
Good.
Yeah, that is good. Because I think, well, all the questions have sort of entered into whatever it was that I felt I needed some clarification or whatever on. But I think I'm questioning where I'm coming from at any time. I got a Christmas story, I guess. It's like, or it may not be a Christmas story. It's just I've been
A story that plays at Christmas.
Yeah,
particularly.
plays out every Christmas. I have been Christmas for a long time. I don't have a big family, but I have 2 daughters and a mother and grandchildren. And I'm in the middle. So I feel like I'm a bit of a conduit most time, not just at Christmas, between them. And I've kind of don't feel I can do anything. I feel in this state most of the time that I can't do anything. Sometimes I don't even know whether I'm awake or asleep, or, I mean, I do, but it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. You're just here and the body's awake. You're just here and the body's sleeping. You're just here and then the body wakes up, and you're just here and the body sleeps.
Yeah, and that's bloody scary because
Why?
Yeah, why is that scary? Because I'm so used to doing this bloody Christmas thing from here and being in control of it. And this perfect Christmas that suddenly came together even, and there's been lots of explosions around it because I've been a bit removed. And I guess people aren't used to that. A hell of a lot of explosions. It's horrible. It's like, what went there?
So all the stuff we've been avoiding as a separate being.
Yes.
The self goes, have a look at this,
Yes.
Let's look at this though. Are you in the middle of that? Are you in the middle of 2 other beings? Are you? Are you in the middle of 2 other beings? You're nodding, but
yeah, I am nodding because I'm used to nodding.
so I'm just like
that
nodding going on, but I'm going to keep asking.
Somebody's shaken and I'm nodding. Yes.
Because it's a familiar role for a lot of us, isn't it? I have to be the mediator. I have to be the facilitator. I have to be the middle one. And that feels very true. We've had a lot of experiences like that. But if we just look at it now, are you one being in the middle, sandwiched in the middle of 2 others?
No.
Is that scary?
Only if I think about it.
Yeah, don't think about it. Just actually
I'm going to be with these other situations.
Because mine says, wait a minute, if I'm not in the middle,
I can't stay with myself, I think. I think that's what.
Because mine says, if I'm not actually in the middle, I'm powerless to sort this out. I'm going to be stuck here forever. Right? Something like that.
Yeah.
But if you are not a separate being in the middle of these 2 other beings, you must also admit that you are these 2 other beings.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's not very nice because I don't like what's going on. It's yes.
So let's just say, well,
you see that
I'm showing up as this body called Elaine. I'm also showing up as these 2 other body mind vehicles that might be expressing themselves in ways that I would not prefer. That's okay to admit that. I would choose something else. But let's just let that go deeper, that you are all of these beings involved in this. 3 body mind vehicles, all these beings. It's just
well, more than 3, but never mind.
Well, however many there is.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's just throw everyone in, 7.5 billion, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So Is there anyone outside of you then that can affect you with things they say or do?
Oh, like Michael said, it feels like it.
Feels like it, but let's really, 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 really look. Could it be actually not these other beings, and I say other, quote unquote, that have been affecting you at Christmas? Could it be this idea that there's other beings to affect you that's been affecting you?
Yes. And there's an attachment to that. Yeah, there's quite a strong attachment to that.
What do you mean by attachment? Like a
And
allegiance?
wanting to have that as a sort of, not wanting to let go of that.
Yeah.
You know, because this, I mean, I've lost a few identities, if you like. I mean, I was a painter. I kind of lost, I don't know whether I've lost it, but I've just put it down.
Self gets bored with it, right?
The mother and daughter, the mother thing.
Yeah.
I'm finding that quite hard to also, it's not that well, this is it. I think this is the question. I'm afraid that if I don't hang on to all these meanings of
I've got all these roles I play,
then I won't be
if I
one.
let go. Yeah.
Then I won't be one. And yeah, and I'm causing that to be a role that I need to keep.
I really want to let go of it because it's a pain in the backside.
Yes.
But if I let go of it, who will I be? Right? Something like that. Yeah.
Yes. And then, you know, there's my daughters, they won't have a mother, and my mother won't be my mother. Well, actually,
Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Are you actually the one that's struggling to let go, or that is holding on to these roles?
Oh. No.
Because the assumption is, the huge energetic pull is, I've got to let this go. If I let go of attachment to being a mother and having a daughter as separate beings, will I even care about my daughter? Will I even be able to function, like you were just saying? But all of that is based on the idea that I'm the one holding on and that has to make a choice to let go. What if that's not you? How does that change everything?
Oops, something's just come up on my screen. Whoops, I lost you for a minute. How does that? Oh.
You see, right here, you see,
Yeah.
ego showing up as this.
It is.
Don't look at this. Don't look at this. Don't look at this.
Yeah. It's
Do
just,
not talk to the crazy woman on the screen. Yeah.
well, this is it. I mean, yes. And I've kind of been looking at just letting things go and be, and things are coming.
Can you let something go? The infinite silence that you really are. Can you let it go? Do you have attachments?
Yeah.
Reminds me, yeah.
Well, even the hotel that I'm staying in sent me an email today. It's a chain saying that they may not be able to live up to their reputation because things are changing, and they haven't. They have some staffing issues, and so
they can't do the roles that they're used to doing.
That's right. They can't do the roles they used to, and I'm thinking,
so are you going to do this role that you're used to doing here?
Yes.
Putting this big spiritual burden upon yourself that you have to let go of this. Are you going to do that? Or can we admit the truth that I am doing nothing at all? My mind is doing, my body's doing. So from that place of truth, let's watch what happens there. I can't sort this out. I can't even, this is the ultimate spiritual problem. Can I surrender my ego? Well, actually, do I even have to as the self? Ego is made up of all the roles that I'm playing. And at Christmas, that gets especially sticky. But is this actually your issue here? It's very important, this, isn't it? Really important.
I suppose it's that wanting to do something.
It's an itch, and we've scratched it so often that it gets sore.
Yeah.
But we still keep scratching. But actually, as we look closer, can I actually, if I am formless and intangible, can I hold on to anything? Do I have any pockets? Am I carrying around carrier bags of attachments, actually?
Yeah, I've got a shopping bag full.
But are you actually the one carrying them? We've all got oodles of shopping bags, so we think.
Yeah.
Suitcases, truckloads even. But
Yeah.
are they yours? Most important question of all, this.
Yeah. Are they mine? I suppose that's the other uncomfortable bit, is that if I think I've questioned this before, that distancing from, is it hardness, or is it just softening into being, rather than hardening against.
When you've realized the truth before about anything, has it made you harder or more gentle, more compassionate?
No, makes me cry.
So if I were you, I would, instead of trying to solve this unsolvable problem, I would actually find out if it's yours.
Yeah.
Do you even have to step away from identification? This is the myth that we all believe for so long, but could it be that you're so extraordinarily free and have always been? But just this idea that I have to move back into myself is just causing so much pain when I am myself and could never be anywhere else than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It comes up at times like this where
Yes.
there's family gatherings and all of that, right? And the roles that we play become highlighted, but do we have to let go of those? Something to sit with there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Helen. Merry Christmas, bar humbug.
I really love Christmas. Yay.
Yes.
So it goes to Kata, last but not least. You're muted there still.
Thank you.
That's all right. Apparently my cat wanted to say something first before you did, so he did.
Okay. I wonder, like, what is the line between when we feel attacked, whatever? What is the line between asking, like, if there is really someone that is being attacked, and looking that there isn't, and like putting limits in life?
Yeah.
So
if I realize there's nobody here to be attacked, says mind, I'm just going to be a doormat and everyone will just, like, how do I have healthy boundaries if there's no person there to enforce them? And that comes from the idea that the separate being is the one enforcing these boundaries. So that if I see, mind feels, if I see there's no separate being here, who's going to actually say, please don't talk to me that way? Or I deserve better than that, or whatever needs to be said. I found that only once the idea of a separate being had gone Did the body actually say those things? Please don't speak to me that way. Or I understand that you're angry right now, but you don't need to take it out on me. Or whatever needs to be said, right? As I thought I was a separate being, I literally could not say those things due to this feeling of unworthiness, or put these boundaries into place. And I found that it had never been this imaginary separate self that was doing all that stuff anyway. And I was more shocked than anyone when I heard my body saying, please don't speak to me that way. I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Like the self just said, okay, I'm actually done with being talked to like this. I'm not going to say it rudely, but it just moved and said very kindly, please don't speak to me that way. And it stopped the person in their tracks because they really weren't expecting that. And you could see the relief in that other being, because finally this cycle was broken between us, finally. That neither one of us could step out of as a separate being. So in fact, rather than being inaction, in terms of putting healthy boundaries into place, as a separate self dissolves, it doesn't dissolve because it's never there, but it was actually the opposite. Appropriate, loving responses that's best for me and that other being. It's only possible as the self, really, to have consistent, healthy boundaries. That has been my experience. Still working on some of those, putting those into place, but when I see them, I have the ability to say what I need or want.
Okay. Because sometimes it feels like I feel something, for example, attacked, as said Michael. So I feel like I am, I don't know, but kind of responsible for dealing with this. It's just to remind me that there is no separate self.
You know, dealing with
So
it as a separate self has never worked anyway. It hasn't actually ever fixed the problem, has it? When I
no,
try to assert myself as a separate being to get some situation to change, that person that's actually doing it to us might disappear, but another person shows up pretty quick to fill their slot.
yes, but it's like I'm being attacked. So in that moment, I remember what Helen says.
I really
Who-
want to remember.
yeah. To who is happening this? Who is being attacked? So it feels like an invitation to remember who I really am, and that the thing doesn't have to do with the other person, but with me.
Yes.
So when I go into that, I mean, what I should do is like, who is this happening to me to?
Yeah.
Then I recognize that there is no separate self, that okay, that my real self cannot be attacked. But at the same time, then I talk to the person and I said, please, that's my question.
Yeah.
If I do both.
And in fact, both are the same thing. It's an act of self-love for me to look inside and remember who I really am. I love what you said. It's an invitation to remember who I am, right? That's the inner way that self-love expresses. It's some self-inquiry, and I see I'm not that person I think I am in this moment. And then that self-love expresses in an outer way towards this other being, that I won't let them in that moment keep treating me badly, because on some level of their being, they're doing that to reconfirm their own unworthiness. I have to keep talking to you this way so that I feel justified in feeling unworthy. And as I say something outwardly, it's an act of self-love towards that being as well, because they are also you. You don't want them suffering as same as you don't want you suffering. So the two things, they're not two things. I have to take some kind of action, even if it's just my body walks away. Or I say, you know what, I'll call you back later when you're calmer. Or please don't speak to me that way. That has, something like that has to occur from the no self, no separate self place inside. Because that other person is you. It cannot be allowed to continue like that. So inner revelation has to lead to outer movement, but from love and compassion.
And what about acceptance? Because I feel like in that moment is like from acceptance is like I allow you to be that way. I'm not going to change you. So
acceptance or unconditional love in that moment is not letting them speak to you that way or letting them walk all over you. Acceptance or unconditional love is understanding why those words are coming out of their mouth, because they think you're separate to them, because they feel totally unworthy deep down, even if they don't realize that, because they probably hate themselves. All they can do is project it outwards. That's all they can do. So unconditional love is understanding who they really are, but also why they're acting that way. But also that unconditional love is of yourself. I don't have to actually stand there and take that. That's not loving to me then, is it, if I do that? So unconditional love is, I understand, you're not going to verbalize these words. I understand why you're behaving this way, but I also don't need to leave myself in the vicinity of that. I will choose to step away. If I don't need you to change, but if you are not ready to change, you will probably end up moving apart from each other vibrationally.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's much clearer. Thank you.
Unconditional love is a tricky one to understand, because, and it's just worth saying a bit more about it, because I couldn't accept unconditional love for a while because I thought it would make me vulnerable and open to everyone that wanted to treat me in less than loving ways. If I accept you like this, you're never going to change, and I'll be stuck with this forever, this kind of treatment that's coming at me. But unconditional love is, I love you just as you are, and I love you so completely as you are, and I understand why you're behaving the way, because you're believing your thoughts and you think those thoughts are actual reality. When I love you like that, and you don't have my best intentions at heart, you have to move out of my experience. In fact, it's the safest way for me to love you unconditionally. If I need you to change and you're not ready to change, we have to keep doing this dance over and over again. Does that help?
Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. So we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for all the questions sent in and everything that you've asked today. Some deep, wonderful questioning. And it always comes back to one thing, doesn't it? That's been the whole theme of this. Mind is calling you to action because it thinks you have this problem. But really looking deeper inside, is that actually your issue? What issues do you have as the self? And that doesn't make you cold and uncaring to the world. Quite the opposite, in fact. Caring more deeply than you ever thought possible, but not being affected personally. That's the huge, huge thing. So over this Christmas period, I wish you love and joy and peace. And if you can't have love and joy and peace right now, I wish you acceptance of yourself, forgiveness of yourself. And I hope that you realize that you are deeply loved by me and by every being that has this capacity for unconditional love. That there are those beings already, probably in your life, that don't need you to change. And with that comes a deeper self-acceptance. That's the biggest gift that awakening will give you. Self-acceptance as you are right now. and a capacity to love yourself unconditionally, which is just the biggest miracle. That is the present this Christmas, if there is one. Christmas can be a wonderful time of year. Absolutely. It can bring families together. It can be it can also be the most challenging time of the whole calendar for a lot of people. So if you are feeling challenged, then I would ask you to dig deep in your heart and see if there isn't something there already that loves you and gives you what you're looking for from others. I think it can be a lonely time, Christmas. Perhaps a time to reconfirm, an invitation, as Kata said, to find out who you really are, to remember again who you really are. So, thank you. Namaste.